In 1945, in the quiet desert hills near Nag Hammadi, Egypt, something unexpected happened, something that would quietly shift how we understand the early days of Christianity. A group of local farmers, digging for fertilizer, came across a sealed clay jar buried deep in the ground. At first, they weren't sure what to make of it. Some even feared it might contain a spirit or a curse. But curiosity eventually got the better of them, and when they cracked it open, they found something astonishing, a collection of ancient manuscripts, now known as the Nag Hammadi Library. Inside those fragile, time-worn pages was a text called the Gospel of Thomas A. Gospel that didn't read like the others in the Bible. It wasn't a biography of Jesus. It didn't tell stories of his miracles or his crucifixion. Instead, it was a collection of 114 sayings, simple, profound, and often mysterious, directly attributed to Jesus himself. For nearly 2,000 years, this gospel had been hidden away, untouched by scholars, untouched by history. It had survived war, empire, religious reformations, and countless changes to the church. Some say it was preserved by divine intention, waiting for a time when people might finally be ready to hear its message, and perhaps that time is now. What makes the story even more remarkable is that it wasn't uncovered by academics or church leaders, it was found by regular people, just going about their daily lives. That makes the discovery feel even more meaningful. It's as if this message, tucked away for centuries, was never meant to belong to the powerful, it was meant to reach the hearts of everyday seekers. The Gospel of Thomas offers a different lens through which to view Jesus, not as a distant miracle worker or a figure of religious authority, but as a guide for deep spiritual awakening. His words in this text invite us to look within ourselves, to seek the truth not in rituals or rules, but in our own lived experience of the divine. It raises honest and important questions. Why was this gospel left out of the Bible? Was it too personal, too empowering, too different? Whether it was hidden by chance or by choice, its reappearance feels timely. The world is hungry for depth, for connection, for something real. And maybe, just maybe, the Gospel of Thomas was uncovered when it was most needed, not to rewrite the past, but to help us reconnect with what's been inside us all along. The Gospel of Thomas offers something that feels incredibly personal, almost like having a quiet, one-on-one conversation with Jesus. Unlike the traditional Gospels that focus on his miracles, crucifixion, and resurrection, this text gives us a glimpse of Jesus as a spiritual guide, a teacher who's less concerned with rules and more interested in helping us wake up to what's already inside us. The 114 sayings in the Gospel of Thomas don't follow a storyline. There are no crowds, no dramatic healings, no parables in the usual sense. Instead, what we get is his voice, clear, direct, and deeply thoughtful. One line stands out: the kingdom of God is within you and all around you, not in mansions of wood and stone. That kind of message hits differently. It doesn't ask us to go anywhere special or follow a particular structure. It invites us to look inward, to listen, and to discover that the divine isn't far away, it's already here. This gospel presents Jesus as someone who trusts us, who believes in our ability to grow spiritually without needing constant direction from religious institutions. That's not to say tradition has no value, but Thomas shifts the focus. It's not about performing rituals or memorizing doctrine. It's about becoming aware of God's presence in our everyday lives, in the quiet moments, in how we love, forgive, and treat one another. For many people today, that's exactly the kind of faith they're longing for. Something less about pressure and more about presence. There's something refreshing about how human and relatable Jesus feels in Thomas. He's not distant or untouchable. He speaks like someone who knows us deeply and wants us to remember who we really are. And who we are, according to him, are children of the living God, already full of potential, already capable of finding truth if we're willing to look. His words don't shame or scold. They challenge and invite. They ask us to stay curious, to keep searching, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. In a world where many feel disconnected from traditional religion, this gospel offers a different kind of spiritual path, one built on direct relationship rather than hierarchy, on reflection rather than rules. The Gospel of Thomas doesn't tell us how to be religious. It shows us how to be awake. And in doing that, it gives us a Jesus who feels close, not just in history, but right here, right now, in the stillness of our own hearts. One of the most fascinating things about the Gospel of Thomas is not just what it says, but the fact that it was left out of the Bible altogether. And that raises some honest questions. Why was this gospel, filled with teachings directly attributed to Jesus, not included in the official canon? It's not because it was heretical or anti-Christian. In fact, many of the sayings in Thomas echo the heart of Jesus' message found in the New Testament about love, truth, the kingdom of God. But there's a shift in tone. This gospel isn't focused on miracles or the cross. It doesn't try to prove who Jesus was. Instead, it's centered on awakening. It shows Jesus as a teacher who urges people to seek God within themselves. That kind of message, personal, empowering, inward, might have been a bit too radical for the institutional church that was forming in the centuries after Jesus' death. In the early days of Christianity, church leaders were working to bring order and unity to a growing, diverse movement. They were deciding which texts best supported a shared belief system, something they could build doctrine on. The four Gospels we know today, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, fit that structure. They told a consistent narrative about Jesus, his birth, his works, his death and resurrection, and his identity as the Son of God. These stories helped shape the foundation of the Christian faith as we know it. But the Gospel of Thomas didn't support that same kind of framework. It wasn't about establishing authority or laying down rules. It was about encouraging spiritual discovery. It was about reminding people that the presence of God lives within them. That kind of message, while beautiful, may have felt risky to early church leaders. If people believed they could experience God directly without needing the church, without needing doctrine or ritual, then what role would the institution play? Thomas didn't challenge Jesus' teachings. It challenged the system that was being built around them, and so it was left out. Not necessarily banned, not publicly condemned, just quietly excluded. And yet, here it is, centuries later, resurfacing. Still speaking, still challenging, still inviting us to ask deeper questions about our faith. Its return feels timely because today, many people are once again seeking a more personal, transformative spirituality. The Gospel of Thomas offers that. Not to replace tradition, but to remind us that God's voice is not just in the pages of a book, it's alive in each of us, waiting to be heard. The Gospel of Thomas isn't just a lost text. It's a spiritual invitation. Unlike the Gospels that focus on miracles or dramatic moments, Thomas goes inward. It's quiet, but powerful. At its core is a message that speaks directly to the soul, that God is not far off, not locked behind rituals, temples, or titles. He's already here within us and around us. One of the most moving sayings in the Gospel is when Jesus says, "The kingdom of God is within you and all around you." That single line can shift everything. It suggests that we don't have to chase after God, we just have to wake up to what's already present. The divine isn't hiding, it's waiting, and maybe so are we. What makes this gospel so spiritually rich is its simplicity. The teachings don't give you step-by-step instructions or demand religious performance. They invite you to pay attention, to be still, to listen. In a world filled with noise and distraction, that kind of message hits deep. Thomas reminds us that faith doesn't have to be loud to be real. Sometimes the most meaningful encounters with God happen in silence, in a walk through nature, a moment of prayer, or a conversation that touches the heart. Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas isn't shown handing out commandments or establishing an institution. He's portrayed as a teacher who trusts people to go on their own spiritual journey. He speaks in short, poetic lines that aren't always easy to interpret, but that's the point. They're meant to stir something inside you, to pull you into reflection and discovery. He's not giving you all the answers, he's helping you ask better questions. And in that process, you don't just learn about God, you start to experience Him. For people today who are burned out by tradition or turned off by rigid dogma, this kind of approach feels like water to a thirsty soul. It's faith that's alive. It doesn't tell you to conform, it invites you to become. The Gospel of Thomas challenges us to stop looking outward for all the answers and to begin looking inward, to the quiet place where God already dwells. In the end, it's not just a gospel of information, it's a gospel of transformation. It calls us not just to believe in Jesus, but to walk with Him, to see the kingdom of God not as a far-off place, but as a living presence already within reach. One of the most powerful themes in the Gospel of Thomas is the idea of inner transformation not through fear or obedience, but through awakening. This gospel doesn't focus on external behaviors or religious duties. Instead, it invites us to change from the inside out. It's not about following a set of rules, it's about becoming more deeply aware of who we really are. One of the most striking sayings in Thomas reads, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." That's not just poetic, it's personal. It suggests that each of us carries something sacred within, a divine spark placed there by God, and it's our responsibility to discover it, nurture it, and let it come alive in the way we live. This is where the Gospel of Thomas gets deeply real. It doesn't sugarcoat the spiritual journey. It acknowledges that transformation is hard. It means facing yourself honestly, letting go of what no longer serves you, and stepping into something more courageous and true. Jesus in this gospel doesn't promise an easy path, he promises a meaningful one. He calls us to wake up, to know ourselves, and in doing so, to come into fuller relationship with God. One of the most beautiful and challenging lines in Thomas says, "When you know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will understand that you are children of the living Father." It's a powerful reminder that our true identity isn't found in our failures or achievements, it's found in our connection to something greater. And when we start to see ourselves through that lens, we begin to live differently. We show up with more compassion. We forgive more freely. We begin to move through life with purpose instead of pressure. For people today who are looking not just for belief, but for change, this message resonates deeply. It says that the gospel isn't about measuring up, it's about waking up. It's about letting the truth of who you are in God shape how you live, love, and serve. The Gospel of Thomas reminds us that spiritual growth doesn't come from trying to be someone else, it comes from becoming more fully who God created you to be. And that kind of transformation, that's not just inspiring, it's liberating. One of the most relevant and challenging messages in the Gospel of Thomas is its warning against materialism. In today's culture, it's easy to believe that success is measured by how much we own our bank accounts, our clothes, our cars, our image. Everywhere we turn, we're bombarded with messages telling us we need more to be enough. But Jesus, in this gospel, flips that idea on its head. One of the sayings reads, "Do not be concerned from morning until evening, and from evening until morning about what you will wear." At first glance, it might seem like a simple reminder not to worry. But when you sit with it, it goes much deeper. It's not just about clothing, it's about the constant mental and emotional energy we pour into appearances, possessions, and performance. The Gospel of Thomas challenges us to shift our focus. Instead of chasing outward wealth, it calls us to cultivate inward richness. Jesus isn't condemning money, he's reminding us how easily it can distract us from what really matters. We can spend our lives striving for more, constantly comparing ourselves to others, hoping the next purchase or promotion will finally bring peace. But deep down, most of us know it never really does. That sense of not enough doesn't get solved with more stuff, it only quiets when we reconnect with what's already within us. Another powerful line from Thomas says, "Whoever finds the world and becomes rich should renounce the world." It doesn't mean we need to give everything away or feel guilty for having nice things. What it means is that we're called to examine where we place our worth. When our identity is wrapped up in what we own, we lose sight of who we are in God. And the more we cling to external success, the more we risk drifting away from our deeper purpose. This message is especially timely in an age of social media, advertising, and constant comparison. The Gospel of Thomas speaks to that quiet part of us that longs for something real, something that doesn't fade, break, or go out of style. It reminds us that joy, peace, and fulfillment aren't bought. They're discovered through gratitude, kindness, and presence. When we begin to let go of material attachments, not only do we feel lighter, we make space for what truly satisfies, a life grounded in love, simplicity, and spiritual clarity. And that's a kind of wealth the world can't take away. In a world where more and more people are questioning what faith really means, the Gospel of Thomas feels surprisingly relevant, maybe even more so today than when it was first written. We live in a time of constant noise, notifications, headlines, pressure to succeed, and a never-ending stream of opinions telling us how to live, what to believe, and who to be. It's no wonder so many people feel disconnected from themselves, from others, and from God. The traditional structures of religion don't resonate with everyone the way they used to. Some people feel burned out by dogma or disillusioned by institutions. And yet, the longing for something real, something that touches the soul, hasn't gone away. That's where the Gospel of Thomas comes in. It doesn't demand that we follow a strict formula. Instead, it invites us into a personal journey. It calls us to slow down, turn inward, and listen to the still, small voice of God already speaking within us. The teachings in Thomas don't offer easy answers or surface-level inspiration. They offer depth. They challenge us to seek truth not in the noise of the world, but in the quiet of our own hearts. For people today who are spiritually curious but institutionally hesitant, this feels like a breath of fresh air. It doesn't tell you who to be, it asks, who are you becoming? It doesn't push for blind belief, it encourages sincere exploration. In a way, the Gospel of Thomas speaks to a generation that values authenticity over appearance, experience over tradition, and meaning over performance. There's something deeply comforting about knowing that Jesus, as portrayed in Thomas, doesn't wait for us to be perfect before meeting us. He's not a distant figure demanding ritual. He's a compassionate teacher inviting us to wake up to the divine already present in our everyday lives. That message cuts through all the noise. It says, you don't have to be someone else. You don't have to go anywhere special. You just have to be willing to seek. And in that seeking, you begin to find that God is not far off. He's here. Now, in a world that often feels chaotic, performative, and disconnected, the Gospel of Thomas offers something beautifully simple and radically needed. The reminder that faith is not about achieving, it's about awakening. And for many today, that kind of message doesn't just resonate, it feels like coming home. At its core, the Gospel of Thomas isn't just an ancient text. It's a living message, one that still speaks with surprising clarity to the human heart. It reminds us that Jesus didn't come just to build a religion or perform miracles. He came to awaken us, to help us remember that the kingdom of God isn't far away or hidden behind rituals, but already within us. That message has never felt more urgent than it does today. In a world full of stress, comparison, and spiritual exhaustion, people are looking for something real. Not more rules, not more pressure, but a deeper connection with God that's rooted in presence, reflection, and authenticity. The Gospel of Thomas doesn't ask us to be perfect. It doesn't demand performance. It simply invites us to begin to seek, to question, to trust that God is already closer than we think. Imagine someone who's drifted from faith, not out of rebellion, but from feeling disconnected. Maybe they once believed, once prayed, once felt close to something bigger, but life got noisy. Work, bills, heartbreak, expectations. One morning, they're sitting alone, coffee in hand, scrolling aimlessly, and they come across the words, "The kingdom of God is within you." Something in them stirs. Not a dramatic revelation, but a quiet nudge. They pause, they breathe, and for the first time in a long time, they look inward, not with fear, but with curiosity. That moment doesn't fix everything, but it starts something, a return, a soft beginning. That's the kind of transformation the Gospel of Thomas points to, not external miracles, but inner awakening. The lesson is this: faith isn't something we wait for, it's something we live into. Salvation isn't a reward for checking all the boxes. It's a process of becoming who we truly are in God. The Gospel of Thomas doesn't replace tradition, but it deepens it. It invites us to not just believe in Jesus, but to walk with Him, to embody His words, and to let them shape how we see ourselves, others, and the world. And maybe the real miracle isn't something we see on the outside. It's the quiet change that happens when someone remembers their love, when they forgive, when they choose hope over fear. That's what this gospel offers, not a new religion, but a new way of seeing, a way of living, a way of knowing that God is not far off but right here, within us, ready to be found.